Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. And our top stories today: proper nutrition for healthy aging and some nutrition hacks for your health. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Travis Chilcott is the owner of Nutrition Healthworks. Travis, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And an important part of retirement and saving is maintaining a healthy body and a healthy lifestyle. How important, from your perspective, is nutrition? What factor does nutrition play in having a good, solid, successful life?
I mean, I'm a little biased, but it's going to play a huge part, right? Because, here's what I tell people a lot of times: you always have to eat, right? So that's something that's a requirement for life. So it's something that nourishes your body. If you don't do it properly, or if you don't nourish your body enough, you're going to pay the price down the road. And that's the one thing about nutrition is, sometimes you can feel the effects immediately, but a lot of times it's not till much later down the road before you actually, feel the consequences, so to speak, or of just a poor health and diet.
Yeah. And when we're talking about nutrition and healthcare, even if you're a young person, you don't have to be a bodybuilder to eat a healthy lifestyle, right? I mean, you can still have fun. You can still be go out and once in a while eat some of your favorite foods. But we're not talking about complete restriction. What we're talking about is balance, getting the nutrients that you need to ensure that your body, whether you are 22 years old or whether you're 82 years old, has the right building blocks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, making it fun and exciting is a big part of what needs to be done, and much like talking about there again, circling back to eating's a way of life, you're going to be doing it forever, right? So having some spicing it up a little bit, trying new things, always keeping it exciting is an easy way to stay motivated about eating healthier, making better choices. And then on the flip side of it is making sure you're not, knocking yourself too hard for if you do make what you may consider a poorer choice or what have you, or yes, you do cave into some fast food from time to time or whatever. That's no big deal. But it also adds that little bit of spice. If you want a little bit, you want pizza or you want a burger, you want something like that. You've got to do those things. But overall, you want to make healthier choices for the majority of your choices.
Yeah, and let's talk about how you approach this with your clients. I mean, you lead a team of nutrition professionals. First of all, what type of clients do you have? I mean, are they all young? Are they all over the range in terms of what their goals are, in terms of their ages, their maturity level, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question because we've certainly expanded it personally as a company. We just added a pediatrics section of ours. We brought on a pediatric dietitian that specializes in that. But so now we see all age ranges. Before it was mainly considered adults, but now, we see youngsters all the way down. Food allergies, 22 months old, I think is the youngest that we've seen to date, all the way up, into seniors. So we do work with all age ranges. Most dietitians and nutrition professionals should be, pretty well versed in at least adults. And some are specialized in pediatrics. So you can find a professional that can deal with each level or variation of age groups. But at our particular company, we're from start to finish.
Yeah, and you bring up pediatric nutrition, and one of our society has a lot of diseases. I bring up diabetes, cancer. There's a lot of certain diseases that have been on the rise. One of which is I previously mentioned is diabetes. And in finance and financial literacy, it's about getting to the younger generation to teach them the basics of saving and putting money away and understanding a budget. Is it the same thing with health and nutrition? You get to those children earlier, help them make the right decision long term, and with their parents' consent, obviously, if they're under 18, to make the decision so they don't have some of these horrible, debilitating illnesses that our society is facing today.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. The earlier, the better, especially if you, as a parent, if you're feeling like you truly haven't been able to help them, that child in that area. One big indicator, if the parent struggles with helping, obviously the kid's going to struggle too because of the level of education. And then, of course, a couple other things play into that. But it's funny you mentioned the diabetes side of things. I mean, the reason why we've had to add on this pediatric side is because of the number of pediatric clients that we get. And, it's unfortunate that we actually have to have providers that specialize in obesity for pediatric and diabetes for pediatric. We've got over 200,000 children have diabetes in this country. So it's extremely important, and it's something that is ever growing, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I agree. It's totally unfortunate. When I was a kid, we didn't have all the fancy video games. We went outside and played, and so maybe we got a little bit more exercise while eating the Fruity Pebbles and some of the things you probably wouldn't recommend in one of your diet plans. Let's shift gears. If we've got a couple more minutes left in this first segment, but let's talk about cognitive decline. And there are some links, I guess, according to the National Institute of Aging, there are some links to not only being active with body and active in mind, but also being healthy in the food you choose. Do you see any correlation with the clients with whom you work?
Absolutely. And it's funny, we talk a lot about nutrition, fueling the body, and people think of it from here down. But, your brain runs off of this same fuel, and actually your brain burns some of the most calories of the organs through the day. And we have to fuel that, and fueling it properly, healthy fats, carbohydrates, all those things are going to certainly help your cognitive function. The gray matter, so to speak, is just basically a bundle of fat. And so we have to make sure that we're supplying that brain with good, healthy fat sources, unsaturated fats, things like that. And then, of course, energy levels too, with carbohydrates are going to be the main source there. So it'll give you both cognitive energy and also prevent the cognitive decline on the long run if you fuel yourself properly and give your body the right nutrients. Yeah,
and I guess last question for the segment. I kind of lied that the last one was the last one, but I thought of another one I want to ask, which is, when people think about health and nutrition, they think about restriction. Oh, I can't have that anymore. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about being bodybuilders or fitness athletes. We're talking about moderation, right? And maybe if you like a slice of pizza, which I, by the way, had over last weekend, I actually had two, you could still do those things in moderation. So we're not talking about completely wiping the slate clean. We're talking about moderation here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually a good keyword for this now. It's called diet culture. It's kind of a really nice little phrase that we have, a diet culture. That's what we live in now, is a diet culture. And what our job and what we're doing and many other nutrition professionals are doing is trying to destroy that, and with diet culture comes restriction. And that's the reason why we're trying to eliminate this, try this, try that. And we get people who call in and they say, I don't know if you can help me or not, because I've tried everything and yada, yada. And they go through all the gamuts of the different types of restrictive dieting that they do. And instead, we try to flip their brain, their mindset, in the sense of we encourage you to eat variation and to eat in moderation, eat the things you enjoy, because eventually you will. And the diet culture is not sustainable. And that's the biggest thing, right? You have these 30-day diets, 90-day diets. And I always like to ask people and say, well, what are you going to do after the 30 days? oh, well, I'm going to eat healthier. Well, how are you going to do that? You know, like, so instead of restricting yourself for a certain period of time, we're trying to encourage people to say, listen, we understand you're going to want to crave sweets or high fat, food groups and things like that from time to time. We get it. We do the same thing. The pizza example is perfect. So, but how do you take that and do that in moderation? And then how do you move on from that as far as switching up, your other integrating into other food groups and things like that to make it overall a choice that your brain and your body's going to enjoy because you don't feel restricted, but at the same time know that, hey, I'm staying in the right path and I'm eating healthier, and I can feel better about being able to include the foods that I really, really enjoy. And somebody's not telling me I can't have that anymore when they're, 30 or 40 years old, and you're thinking to yourself, oh gosh, you mean I can't have this particular food for the next 40 years of my life? That's absurd.
Yeah, that seems really painful. Well, Travis, I want to go to a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about some tips and tricks that you should think about when planning your next set of meals. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking to Travis Chilcott. He's the owner of Nutrition Health Works. Travis, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is great.
You're making me, all this talk about food is making me extremely hungry. And I think a lot of people out there who are watching the show, at least when it's broadcast at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, they may be planning their lunch, they may be making their breakfast. What are some tips or tricks that people can use? I don't want you to give away the story here because you're doing this every day with your clients, but what are some things that people should think about when they're planning the food for themselves, their spouse, their children, or maybe their mother or father?
Yeah, planning is a huge part of it. I mean, but it doesn't have to take a ton of your time. And I think that's where, some individuals make the mistake is that they're saying, well, I'm going to have to take all of Sunday and I'm going to have to go to the grocery store and I'm going to have to plan and cook and it's going to take me the entire day. Simplicity is key. There's things that are microwavable that are still good. There's things that can be prepped very easily and very quickly and done in bulk. And I think bulk is the main thing. So tip number one would definitely be, don't necessarily have a Sunday, let's say, or one particular day set. My recommendation is look at your schedule and see what is typically the most available 1 to 2 days that you have during the week. That might not be Sunday, right? That could be sometimes in the morning, or it could be later in the afternoon. Those are the days in which you'd want to plan. I normally recommend 2 because food in the fridge is going to be good for about 3 to 4 days. So there's 7 days in a week, right? So we need to plan ahead for that. But cooking in bulk is definitely a really, really good tip. And, first thing in the morning, you want to start the day off right, but you also want to make sure you have things available for lunch and dinner. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, when shopping, do you have any recommendations? We're not going to talk about brands, but when you're actually shopping for food, you mentioned prepping, but you need to pick up the food. Do you shop on the perimeter of the supermarket? Where are the best places to shop? Forgetting brands, because people, look, I'm going to be lured. I love Australian Darylia licorice, and I cheated yesterday and had some, but people are going to be drawn to getting some of those snacks. But where should people generally shop in a food market?
So one, don't go to the grocery store hungry. Ever. That's always a terrible idea. I've actually walked in and eating a snack, right, as I was walking in, just to make sure that I wasn't hungry. So the perimeter of the grocery store is going to be where majority of your fresh items are. So that's definitely a go-to kind of mentality to have when going in, is going around to those types of areas, the vegetables and fruits, and then your meats, dairy, and all that jazz. But there are going to be some items within the actual middles themselves, like the middle areas. That's where your rice and your pastas are. A lot of times there's snack bars, things like that. Nuts are going to be usually in that middle section as well. So I can't say necessarily take a specific direction and only stay at the perimeters, because there's still going to be some items on the inside. I think the main thing is if you don't go hungry, and then go with a list and stick to it, and you will be, not only will you be in and out of there faster, but also, as long as you're sticking to the list, right, you're only getting the items. So your budget is happy with that because you already know what items you need. So you know approximately how much it's going to cost you going to the grocery store, but also the fact that you don't end up picking out things that aren't on the list. And therefore, either sometimes they could be, picking up too many choices that aren't quite on your program as far as what the needs that your body has. And therefore, you're just kind of wasting your time and wasting effort there. But go with a list. Perimeter is always a great choice. But then when you're going into those internal aisles, make sure that you're getting exactly what you came there for.
Yeah, really good advice. I want to ask you about labels, because a lot of the food, clearly a vegetable doesn't have a label on it. But
right.
If you buy food, it generally has label. And, it's based on some assumption of calories. So one, how do I take in all that information that's on the label when I'm buying food? And then two, how do I determine what my caloric needs are? Because I'm only 5'8", maybe about 155 to 160 pounds. My needs are going to be different than someone who is 6 foot and has 6 foot and 200 pounds. So how do you make that distinction?
That's a great question. So before you really start diving into the food labels, you want to know what your caloric needs are. Right. So one way to do it, and the method in which we use, is called metabolic testing, to where you breathe into a machine and it actually tells us with 99% accuracy how fast or slow your metabolism is and how many calories that your body burns each day. If you don't have access to one of those, then there's online websites like a MyFitnessPal, for example, to where you can type in your age, your name, your height, and all that. And it kind of kicks out an approximation. So once you have that information, then you want to start diving into food labels. What do you want to look for on food labels is going to vary depending on what your health needs are. And that's kind of there again, where the professionals kind of come in to help out with that. But if you have high blood pressure, one of the key things you want to look for anything on a packaging is sodium levels. If you have high cholesterol or you have other type of particular needs, you want to look for the fat content and make sure that the fats are coming mostly from unsaturated type fats, which will have there on the label. Things not really to worry about. I can't say that too many people would need to worry about like protein content, the vitamin and mineral content. I mean, it's helpful to know those things, but most particular, caloric needs for an individual, doesn't specifically have to look for that. I mean, you won't really want to focus on the things that are going to be a factor in your health goals, and high blood pressure, cholesterol, things like that. We see that all the time. Those would be the things that I would look for. And then the calories, right? So if you know approximate calorie needs for the day, you could split those up into sections and say, okay, this would, I have, 200 or 300 calories allocated towards a snack in the morning. You can look at the label, determine, is this going to be a snack that's going to fit in with the profile that I'm looking for my health goals?
Yeah. I guess last question here, Travis. Or comment, and I'll get your reaction to this. We're talking about food that we consume, but we don't want to underestimate the importance of water. I think the human body is what, 2/3 water? The earth is 2/3 water, one of the two.
Earth
Maybe
is
it's both.
2/3 water. Body's even more. Yeah.
Body even more. So we don't want to underestimate the importance of drinking a glass of water. And for me, it isn't sticking to what I'm eating. Oftentimes it's me not hydrating myself. And when you're dehydrated, it may make you hungry. So water is my Baltimore accent coming through, water. But we need to be thinking about consuming water, taking the breaks, getting some water or some other fluid that is not high in calories to make sure that we're properly hydrated, right?
Absolutely. The general rule is going to be about 8-ounce cups a day. You can include coffee and tea into those categories as well. The only thing I don't normally count would be like a soft drink, for example. I don't count that necessarily as hydration. That's a long story, but and it doesn't have to be just water either. I mean, it could be flavored water, right? I use those, little packets and things to flavor my water from time to time, especially if I feel like I'm not getting enough that day. And I've been looking at the same water cup for a few hours, and I think to myself, maybe I'll spice it up a little bit. And then what I find is that I drink faster that way. So it kind of catches me up on maybe some missed opportunity there. But yeah, it's the recommendation is based on body weight. The more of a body you have, the more water you need. And so it varies from person to person, but in general, make sure you're getting about 8-ounce cups. Start there, and then you can address whether you're still feeling like you're not quite getting enough, or maybe you're getting an adequate amount.
Yeah. Well, Travis, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, but really great discussion, real great conversation. I think the audience has a lot to walk away with here in terms of planning their meals and properly and healthfully aging. Travis Chilcott, pleasure talking with you, and look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, then drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the information in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more, all in one place, check out our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Are you being audited, and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.